Hey guys, this is Colby. Today I'm going to show you how to make the attachments for the Phase 2 helmets. So that includes this piece here, the side pieces, like for the ears, this piece and this piece, as well as this back cylinder area, and this section here. So let's get started. So I'm going to start off with this section here, because it's probably the most difficult. But once you do this, you'll pretty much be good for the rest of the project, and you should be able to create this other pieces pretty easily. So starting off, let's create a cylinder. Let's scale it down a bit. Rotate it on the y-axis 90 degrees if it's straight up, and just move it to the ear section here. You can drag the areas around, and you only have to do one side because you can just symmetrize it on the other side later on, the mirror modifier. But just scale it down and match it to your reference. And make sure to do all this in object mode. You can do it in edit mode if you want, but keep in mind that all of your modifiers are still applied, so I'd recommend just doing them separately. It's a lot easier that way. And a lot of people keep asking if this can be made for like 3D printing, but since I'm doing this attachment separately, that basically means it's not really going to be 3D printable. You can 3D print attachments separately if you want, but overall this helmet, based on what I've done so far, wouldn't really be good for 3D printing because I've added the edge split modifier and a lot of other modifiers that kind of get in the way. Anyway, let's continue with the earpiece. So once you have this cylinder basically matched to your reference from side view, in a good position, right here, and from front, let's go ahead and go into edit mode and scale down this face. So select this face and press S to scale down. And just match it to your reference to like pretty much this point here. So that looks good on the reference. So let's grab the whole cylinder and let's rotate it on the x-axis a little bit. So basically what you want is to have this face, and these two faces to basically line up with these like little forks that stick out of the cylinder. So in order to do that, you can rotate the whole thing just a tad bit, like that. Maybe like this. Align the center piece straight down. And let's add some edges right here. So add Control R, left click, finalize, and one right here as well. So that way you can have two edges that basically have even thickness. So this should maybe be out a little bit, but that's pretty good. So once you have your faces like this, your edges and everything, you're ready to start moving on. So now go ahead and select these faces. So select these two, this one and this one, and press E to extrude, and just move it down. So E and then left click and then just press G and then Z, or you can drag it with the arrow, this blue one here, to this point right here. Now we're going to scale them all flats and make them straight. Just press S, Z, and then 0. And that'll perfectly flatten it out. So that way we can move to this point right here. And so now we're going to start wrapping around the jaw piece here. So it's a bit more curved. Let's go to front view. Rotate your faces on the y-axis. So R, Y, and then just kind of rotate with your mouse. Like that. And it's going to continue extruding around the jaw. So this section here. And just match it to our reference. So for this little section here, I'm just going to do a little time lapse, but all I'm going to be doing is just extruding faces to match the curve. Just press E to extrude, drag it into position, and just wrap around and match it to your reference. So I'll see you here in a second. So now we're ready to start. Just kind of straighten some of these sections out. So make sure you have all these faces selected. Press S and then X and then 0 to straighten it out. Let's add some edges here, here, and here to add a curve. Control R, right in the middle, just left click to finalize it. And so now go into edge mode and hold down Shift and Alt at the same time and select the edges here. And all three of them. Let's move them to the side. And the X-axis to match the curve. So make sure to match to your reference. So they should kind of be like a little bit side here. And these faces are a little bit too forward on the y-axis, so let's move them back. Just try to keep it even. Just move these to the side, and that's good. And you can keep adding more curves to make it a bit more high poly looking and match the curve more perfectly. That's pretty much it. So now go ahead and add a subdivision surface modifier to your object. You mirror it first a few once to the other side of the helmet. Set the mirror object as the basically the center piece here. Now you can add the subdivision surface modifier. And we have some problems here, but it's pretty easy to fix. Just go into edit mode and let's sharpen some areas out. So just basically you're going to be adding edge loops all across these sections here. So select this face and press E to extrude and scale it. So press S and then just scale down a little bit. Let's add an edge up here. Control R and one right back. So these problems are starting to disappear. So let's add some edge ups here to sharpen this area out. But you don't want to do it too much. Just try to match to your reference basically. Pretty nice like curve in between these center pieces here. And so we have a little bit of a problem here. You can fix it. So I might turn on proportional editing to kind of fix this little jagged edge here. And just move it to the Y. Just a tad bit. Even it out. And if you have any like kind of weird edges that sort of stick up a little bit too much, just kind of drag them at the position a little bit. Select this face here again and press E to extrude. So you can kind of see here there's a bit of a problem. So we need to grab these two edges and move them on the X-axis, straighten this area out. And that should fix that weird line that was kind of happening here. That's pretty much it for this piece. Okay, add one more edge up here to sharpen this little corner. And that's good. So now go back into object mode and shade the smooth. See how it looks. So it looks pretty clean so far. And I think we're ready to start working on the next piece. It's like next to it. So let's get started. So there's basically another cylinder on top of this earpiece. That's pretty easy to do. Just create another cylinder, Shift A, and just move it into position again. Scale down, rotate it on the y-axis. It's basically the same exact thing we did for the earpiece. Just scale down. So it matches to your reference. Looks good. And just go to edit mode, grab this face, and scale it down a tad bit. And just for this little piece here, I think it's pretty much done. Just add some edge ups again, and shade it smooth. And press E to extrude, and scale it down, and just sharpen these corners out. Some edge loops, and that looks good again. That's pretty much it. I'm just going to show how to make these pieces now. They're basically the same thing. We're just going to be using a cylinder and kind of extruding to the tip here. Using like another cylinder for this piece. That'll be pretty much it. Also, one thing I forgot to mention is that I wanted to make it a little bit easier to set the new spawn point for your object that you create, like a new mesh. just hold down Shift and right click any point on your mesh, the helmets. So for this piece here, I might just move the back up a bit. Basically, we're working on this section here. It's pretty easy to make. All you need to do is just keep extruding. Press E to extrude, left click to finalize it, and then to create like a little smaller cylinder in front of it. Select the face that you're already extruding from. Press E again to extrude. But right after you press E, press S to scale it down. And basically just rinse and repeat. Just press E to extrude, move it forward, press E again, and then S, scale it down. Press E again to move forward, and press S, E, and then S to scale down. And you're just creating smaller and smaller cylinders that are attached to the same cylinder. That's pretty much all I did for this piece here. Sorry if that is a little confusing, but now that I explained it, we can start kind of moving forward again. So if your cylinders kind of turn out a little bit small, you can go into face mode and edit mode and hold down Shift and Alt and select each set of faces. So basically you want to select not this set, but rather this one here and this one. In order to target the right area, when you're selecting all the faces, you need to make sure to click on one of these edges. It doesn't matter which one, just as long as you click on this edge, this one, and this one. And then for this little face here, click on this edge and just keep selecting these sections of faces here. And for this inner piece, once again, just hold down Shift and Alt and select this set of faces on the inside. And we can scale it up a bit and make it a bit more wide. There we go. So now you can go back into object mode, shade it smooth. So right click, fade smooth. And it looks really smooth. You can't really see all the details. So we need to add some edges to sharpen these little ridges out. So Control R and just add edges along the corners on the inside of the faces here. And one on the end and one on the front. Do one here. You can pretty much add them wherever you want. Just add some on the inside. And you could sharpen this face out too. There we go. So now you want to grab this whole piece in object mode. Let's move it into position because it's ready. And before you rotate it, let's add a cylinder right here. Not a cylinder, I mean a sphere. Let's delete half of the sphere. Let's go to side view and go into edit mode on the sphere and go to wireframe. So this little button here, and just select half of the sphere and delete it. So you can use this little box tool here, box selection. Just grab half of these faces, press X to delete, and make sure to delete any of these little straggler pieces here. So now let's go and scale it down. Go back into object mode, scale the whole thing down, and let's move it like right here. And this basically just fits into this piece that we just created. So that looks good. Shouldn't stick out too much. So now go back to object mode and just shade it smooth. That's it. So now you can just go ahead and join it to your cylinder. So select the sphere and the cylinder you just created. In object mode, just hold down Shift, select both of them, and press Control J to join them both together. So now it's one solid piece. So now go ahead and match it to your reference. So rotate it on the X-axis and just move it back into position, go right by here. And go to front view and do the same. And at this point, you might as well just kind of match it more to your helmet rather than the reference itself, because the helmet that I made isn't like a perfect match of the reference. So it's better to just match this attachment to the helmet itself. So now we can add a mirror modifier, just like we did earlier with the earpiece. Set the target as this section here. And that's good. So at this point, you should pretty much have a good understanding of how to model attachments. It's basically just creating cylinders or any kind of object that's like closest to the initial shape. You're just editing it as tad bits and adding additional objects to kind of add a bit extra detail to it. So now I'm going to go ahead and start working on this attachment on the top. Right, so for the Mohawk piece, it's actually pretty simple. Just go ahead and select your helmets to kind of select the center. So press Shift S and cursor to selected. Let's go to cube, Shift A cube. Let's move it up to the top here. Match to your reference. And let's go into front view and also match to your reference. Let's go into edit mode and delete half of the mesh. So Shift Alt and select this half, or you can just go into wireframe mode and just kind of select half of these faces. Just like that. Go back to object mode, add a mirror modifier, and turn on clipping. And so now you want to basically add this little center like a ridge here, this little like gap. So go into edit mode, add some edge loops here, like 2 right here. And grab this face and just move it down and match to your reference, just like that. So now we can go ahead and start extruding forward and then start extruding back. Basically all you're going to be doing is grabbing these faces here on the fronts, go to side view, and press E to extrude on the y-axis, and just wrap around the top of the helmets, just like we did for the earpiece. Just keep extruding and rotating around this like the jawline, but instead we're just going to be doing it across the top of the head. Alright, so finally the last step is to apply all your modifiers on each object. Also, if you want to learn how to make the visor that I made here, I didn't really show how to do it in this series because I've already shown it before in my phase 1 clone helmets tutorials. So just go through and look how to make the attachments, and there you'll find how to make the visor. I just add like a black texture to it that's shiny, but pretty much that's it. That's the end of this video. So if you have any questions, just leave a comment down below. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of questions because I think this episode is probably a little bit confusing for the most part because the details are a little bit sometimes hard to make. So if you have any questions on how to make the details, I might do a separate video on how to cover them. But anyways, I hope y'all guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.